Okay, hi. So, the video you're about to watch is an accumulation of basically the most work I've done in my entire life. Like, I went through a lot just to basically find all this information. And my brain is thoroughly gone. Um, so, I hope you enjoy the video you're about to watch. I enjoyed making it to a part, but I didn't enjoy reading all that information. But it's actually interesting, so continue. So if you watch the end, then I'll see you again at the end. But until then, have fun listening to me cringely try and do Geralt's voice. And I hope you enjoy this lore video on Curtana, the Holy Shield, Excalibur, and Agis. Now, the Excalibur, Agis, and Curtana will have real life aspects to them, but the Holy Shield won't, because it is just, to my knowledge, literally just a name they used for 14, so they had a design for the shield. But the other three do actually have real world lore behind them, like real world myths and things. And aside from the Curtana, because that is an actual real sword, and I will explain that later in the video. I hope you enjoy. So yes, to the video. See you guys in a bit. To completely understand the sword Curtana, we need to delve deep into the creation of the Paladin Order of the Sultan Sworn, originally started by the wielder of the legendary sword Oathkeeper. 3 other swords were made with the same ore as the Oathkeeper and became the Oathkeeper's sister swords, but I'll get to them in a minute. The Oathkeeper was not only the sword of the first leader of the Sultan Sworn, but it also became the sword that represented the leader throughout the centuries, until it came to the master of the Sultan Sworn 30 years prior to our indoctrination into the Paladin ways. For it was stolen from him, and he spent the next 30 years disgraced looking for such a sword. Between then, he trained 2 apprentices, including myself, makes 3. Although we do not find the third until the Heavensward questline, which is when we come across the Oathkeeper. That master, having found the sword, finds that we are the only ones that can make it glow. So he gives it to us, and it glows for the first time in over 30 years. As it only glowed for him once, and as it was said that the first wielder of the sword could make it glow like the sun. And his very job crystal was embedded into the hilt. But we do not keep this sword for long, as we give it to the current leader of the Sultan Sworn, and our brother student. This is the last we see of the sword. For now, at least. The other 3 swords are Durandal and Joasis, which we do not know much about other than their names, and that they were the other 2 swords wielded by the 2 Sultan Sworn. The third is Curtana, and was granted to one Jahal Tristram, a legendary paladin. It said that he swore his sword to the first Sultan, like the others, and became some of the most legendary warriors to ever live in Eorzea. We are tasked by Geralt to go and get the sword that was entombed in Tristram's tomb when he died, but was recently robbed by the Amalja, so we were sent to Zanrak to go and kill some Amalja, and yet we do not return with the sword completely. We returned with a very damaged version, but also a text that goes more in depth into the lore of Tristram. Now, we are not given much towards this lore, other than what the very few things that Geralt has told us about Tristram. It says that he defeated an Amalja pugilist after swearing his sword to the Sultan, and then he goes to find the sacred goblet. Now, I can only hazard a guess that this sacred goblet is the Fountain of Youth. Or some other goblet, maybe. Who knows? It is also said that the legendary sword itself had 4 crystals embedded in it of the ashes of a saint. Now we know saints as they are the pure beings of light, and it is said in the ancient ways that to truly make a sword masterful or a weapon masterful was to embed the bones or body parts of ancient creatures. Morbid, as Geralt says. But one can say, if the ashes of a saint, an immortal being, was embedded into the sword, does that make the sword alive? Does that make the sword able to talk to us? Because we do find out later on, the Geralt embedded those 4 crystals from the original sword into our sword. So we carry an authentic Curtana, as it was forged from the same ore as the original. The only thing I can say was, did it become more legendary than the original wielders? We would never know unless we fought the original wielder in combat. We do not find out much more about the Lys legendary sword until an event that happened in 2015, the Little Lady's Day. This is where we see the 3 swordsmen, life-size, holding their swords for all to see. These are obviously recreations and replicas, but they are replicas down to a T, as they say. And it confirms that these are made by the same steel. Eras have passed, kings have fallen, but the legend of these swords stayed true to this day. Now obviously, the Curtana has a real life myth behind it. Well, less so. Hello, Future Zero here. After some more research I did on the Curtana, I found out that there are actually 2 more different stories surrounding that particular weapon. One such story saying that it was the sword and said to be the original Curtana, saying that it was the legendary sword of Tristane. Now that's very similar to Tristram, and is apparently in some legends even called Tristram. Now he was said to be a legendary knight of England, but there was also another tale that I saw that was very similar to suggest that it was one such short sword that was made from the same steel and temper as Durandal, Roland's sword, and José, another such sword. And I think that's the legend that 14 chose to use, even though it is today one of 5 swords in circulation and one of the crown jewels of England. I think they actually used the legend from Durandal, the Roland sword. Sorry to jump in, now back to the main part of the video. Behind it, well, less so real life myth and more like real life legendary treasure. That's right, it is based on the same sword that adorns the crown jewels and is used in knighting ceremonies by the Queen of England, and is one of the most treasured belongings in England and the British Isles. moving on to the final stage of this relic questline, and that being the Excalibur and the Agis shield. Now it was said, and this is the only piece of information that we actually get on the Agis shield and Excalibur from Jalzan. He says, ages past, a wise and just king reigned over all of Ilzabad. A blade such as this graced his scabbard in times of peace, and brought terror to his foes in times of strife. He's speaking of the Excalibur that we adorned with at the very end of the questline. Although this is a replica, I believe it is the closest we can get to the legendary king's sword. And as for the shield, it is said it is a twin of the original shield, unwielding, unwavering, and unbreaking. Now, this is very little information that we have of these two weapons, although if we look into the real life myth of these weapons, we can see the bigger picture for these weapons. For the king that he is referring to could refer to two figures in myths past that wielded both of these items. Yes, I'm referring to the legendary king that is said all across the British Isles in legends, the greatest king to ever reign, and united the lands of England, Wales and Scotland. Although I believe in Wales and Scotland lore, he's seen as a tyrant more than a godly figure like he is in England. Yes, I'm referring to Arthur Pendragon, and the wielder of either the dragon forged sword Excalibur, or the forge of or the sword of the stone Excalibur, the right to be king. Now, Excalibur is the original name from the sword from ancient texts. Excalibur is a more recent rendition of the sword's name, as it has gone through many different names throughout history. But that's saying something. That the legend in 14 says that this was held by a wise and just king that reigned over all of Ilzabad. If we look at the Arthurian legend, this is very similar to all of those. So I believe they literally just took that story and put the different names on, Ilzabad being the name instead of England. We don't get the king's name, but I imagine he'd have a name probably similar to Arthur. As for the shield itself, it was not part of the Arthurian legend. Actually, it was not even part of the English legend, like Curtana and Excalibur. No, this was part of Greece. And Agis was the shield that was given to the name of Zeus. Yes, we literally wield Zeus's shield in 14. And this could also refer to the king of Elsabad, as Zeus was the king of the gods, being the ultimate ruler of Greece and the world. I'd like you to think about these particular things. The first stage of the relic being Curtana, a ceremonial sword used for knighting, and was wielded in 14 by a legendary paladin, a knight sworn to a king or the sultan. And the Agis and Excalibur, wielded by two amazing figures throughout myths and history and religion, but also wielded by the same king that ruled over the entirety of Ilzabad for many years and was just and powerful, but fair, but also terrifying. This was my video on the Curtana, Excalibur and Agis shield. I hope you enjoyed this lore video. Expect more from many different versions of these relics. I do plan on covering all the different relics, provided there is enough lore behind the weapon in game that I can talk about. And I will refer to any real life myths and texts that I can find on these particular on these particular objects. I know there are a few that do not have any real-life myths. But those are for other videos. For now, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and please like and subscribe if you wish. And if you wish to see my face or be bugged by my videos every time that I upload, please press that bell button. And if you did not like this video, please press that dislike button and tell me why in the comments so I can adjust to better suit you. Because I want to please all of you. Thank you for watching. I'm Zero. You guys are amazing. And this is me signing off. Thank you for watching.